My loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits for March 3rd to March 10th. Now, before we do any type of recap or breakdown or anything like that, I just want to remind everybody that my one-on-one sessions are still on special going through the month of March. You can go to the website, www.thespirituallyboujee.com. Go to astrological consultations. My one-on-one sessions for an hour have been discounted to $35. 90-minute sessions have been discounted to $50. You can do all of your booking directly through the website. Just want to remind everybody that that special has continued into this wonderful hot mess month of March. And it is a mess. I'm a little delirious. I gotta be clear. Like, I'm little bit delirious kind of going into this because I'm like, I totally saw the astrology, guys. I don't know that other people see things the way that I do. And I mean it when I say it. Like, I really do not want to go in like some political direction with this channel because I'm going to alienate a lot of people and I don't want to do that. I like to help people regardless of your faith, and I like to help people regardless in what you believe in. But whenever it comes to what happened last week, I'm going to use Friday. And if you haven't seen, social media, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you've seen any form of social media, you know what I'm about to talk about. And I saw the transits. I saw the energy where everybody else saw what they wanted to see and yay or nay and whatever. I didn't see that. But I saw that first marker of energy that I said would happen. And that is the turn, the Venusian turn of wanting to fight back, of wanting to be seen differently. And that is what we saw on Friday. I don't know how many of you actually saw more than just what was on the news. But if you looked on Twitter, you would have also found right before that press conference happened between Trump, Vance, and the Oval Office and Zelensky, they were antagonizing him before the press conference actually started. Like, he was kind of already ready to growl when that press conference happened because the people in the room were kind of poking, saying certain things to get under his skin. And it was almost very childlike in the sense of why aren't you wearing a suit? You should be wearing a suit. I'll wear a costume when my country is not in war. Referring to all of these men in the suits in the room as men in costumes. And I thought that was kind of funny. And then we saw the actual press conference. And I'm looking at that and I'm looking at the energy around that. I'm like, in that moment, I saw the astrology. Now, if you love Donald Trump or hate him, I don't care. It's not about that. If you were Republican or Democrat, it's not about that. I saw the energy turn in that moment. And I looked at my mom, it's like, that's going to have a ripple effect. Because that happened within 24 hours of Venus turning retrograde. So I'm using that as an example of that turn in the vibration. A lot of us had something inside, something in our surroundings, something going on that there was a turn over the weekend. Now, for some people, the turn was very intense, using the Oval Office as my example. But I want to move away from that because I don't want to get stuck on that at all. And I'm thinking about the other turns that were felt. I need to make a change. Now, one part of last week, going through the new moon and going through the square between the sun and Jupiter, is there was a boost in confidence. The confidence to take something on, the confidence to go in a certain direction, the confidence to make a change, the confidence to do something. And that happens somewhere between the new moon's vibration and the actual perfection of the sun square to Jupiter. Now, that perfected over the weekend going into this new week. And it's still kind of setting the stage for parts of this week. But there's another part of this week that is also going to make its presence known. And it's kind of hilarious. And it's not necessarily Venus in this regard. Now, Venus is retrograde. But this week, she doesn't really do a whole lot. She's spinning, stewing, stirring, going in that same spot over and over again. The way that can manifest within us, though, is literally like our head gets to spinning of all of the things that we need to do differently. Where should we be putting our money? What should we be doing with the aesthetics of the home? What we need to change, what we need to transform, what we need to let go of, what we need to clean up, what we need to refocus our energy on, what we physically need to fix. Because to reach that point in our confidence boost, we've also realized to get to this point, to reach a goal, to get something going for the long term, which for a lot of people, the long term will be kind of starting up over the summer, but I got reasons for that. For us to reach something, we have to do the work. We got to get ready. Before we can repaint the house, we got to move all the furniture out. We got to get ready. Put down all the paper on the floor. Put down the painter's tape. Let's not paint the trim the same color as the wall. Like, we got to get ready. There's prep work. And I've said this before, whenever we go through a lot of the energy of March, we got work to do. Venus is retrograde in Aries is going to have a lot of physical actions of work, some improvement that needs to be done. This week, we start coming to terms with the work, with the improvement, with what we got to do different to make a difference, to have something change. And for some of us, that means not waiting on everyone else, not waiting on someone else to do a certain part, not waiting on some other form to come in and swoop in and just be the hero. No. Sometimes you have to roll up your sleeves and do the damn shit yourself. There's a lot of things this week where we have to start to realize and start to come to terms with. We just got to do it ourselves. There's work to be done. But whenever we go into the process of doing that work, there's also going to be some things that start to get said. And this is where I giggle. The start of this week, Mercury goes into Aries. So one of the very first things that we deal with right at the start of the week, Mercury's entry into Aries. That's pop-off season, guys. That's what I always call Mercury and Aries. Mercury and Leo, Mercury and Sag, those have very different vibrations than Mercury and Aries. Mercury and Aries does not care how you feel. How I say it is how it came out. And if that hurts your feelings, I don't give a damn. Pop, 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 pop. And considering the condition of Mars, some of the things that start to pop off this week, next week, continuing forward, because Mercury is going to be in Aries all month, direct and retrograde. Some of the things that we start to pop off, we've been sitting on for a while. And that's because of the condition of Mars. Now, after this week, Mars is going to start moving again. Mars is actually going to get off the 17-degree mark, but not at the start of the week. He's still very much stuck at that same degree of the sky where his retrograde ended over a week ago. So there's a stewing. For a lot of us, there's double stewing. Mars has been stewing in one area of the sky. Venus is now retrograde stewing at one end of the sky. Things are going to bubble up to the surface. And suddenly, we're going to have a lot to say. There's going to be a lot of things that need to come across. And for some people, it's going to be that bold plan of this is my big, great idea of what I want to do. And it's a part of that confidence boost. But for other people, it's going to be perceived as aggressive cockiness. And you think I'm playing. I'm not. So I got a book. I love this book. I don't bring it out very often. I rarely show you guys the books that I have. I have a huge collection on my bookshelf. I'm infamous for going to the used bookstores and trying to find the books that they don't have in print anymore. And I love this one because I was reading just this little bit of the principles of the sun, Mars, and Jupiter. And I want to read this to you guys because this was hilarious to me. Because this is what I was picking up on just based off of Mercury going into Aries. But we also have this energy that's going to be going on between the sun, Mars, and Jupiter. And for me to explain that, I want to read this to you first. So the principles. The irrepressible, which when I first read that word, I actually read it as irresponsible and had to go back. So irrepressible, yang, passion, and enthusiasm, boundless exuberance, strength, and vitality, a bold and adventurous spirit, a self-centered ambition or aggression, cocky in-your-face arrogance, and obnoxious directness. This is about the sun, Mars, and Jupiter being combined in the upcoming transit of this week. This doesn't even include Mercury and Aries, and I thought that was hilarious. Just made me giggle, little delirious giggles of, oh, it's going to be so fun this week. Some of the things that come out of people's mouths. Because the pop-off vibration is going to be real. But let's talk about that sun, Mars, Jupiter, and what I was picking up on. Again, over the weekend going into this new week, we had a square perfect between Jupiter and the sun. And there was that confidence of there's something I want to achieve. But given Venus turning retrograde during that same time frame, for me to achieve this, I have other things I got to do the work to get there. And that is legit. But over the course of the week, the sun is going to go into a trine with Mars. And we're going to have some kind of push, given Mars is now direct, but hosting Venus retrograde and hosting Mercury and Chiron. There's something here about we have to voice and tell people what we need to do to take care of certain things because it is Mars in Cancer. The corrective actions. However, in between the sun square to Jupiter and the sun's trine to Mars, we're going to go through that third and final Antiscia between the sun and Jupiter. That indirect transit that if we fold the chart, they'll lay on top of each other and hit this hidden opposition. For some people, the confidence is going to rub other people the wrong way. The plan is going to rub some people the wrong way. The things that get said this week are going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And there's going to be issues and tension and frustrations that start to grow. Now, when I say March is a series of reactions, responses, results, consequences, whether intended or unintended, I mean that. But this week isn't necessarily where we pop off to the consequences. This week is kind of telling people the plan and seeing who's on board and who isn't. Seeing who knows what and who doesn't. Seeing who you can rely on and who you can't. Who's on your team and who isn't. And whenever I talk about March, moving forward, March is a gauntlet of energy. We have one obstacle after another, after another. It is just a gauntlet of feeling a rush and rage. Some of it is confidence. Some of it is being pissed off. There's so much in the vibration that is coming. My downloads over the weekend, my dreams over this weekend have been so freaking intense. It's been crazy. But my job is to be a voice and explain what's coming through so people can be prepared. I can't stop any of it. I just know my purpose. It's to help others. And what you do with this It's completely up to you. How you handle the vibration is completely up to you. Whether you pop off or not is completely up to you. Some of you will. And what's funny is I think of the condition of Mars and I think of how so many people have been bringing all of these deep seated, hateful energies. Mars is retrograde in Cancer, but there's a lot of people that they have just taken hit after hit after hit after hit. It's something about these next 2 weeks, not just this week, but the next 2 weeks. Some of y'all are going to take a hit and you're not going to be nice anymore. You're not just going to let it roll off of your back, roll off your shoulders. You're not just going to let it roll off. You're going to be more tempted to put someone in their place, to tell someone whether they are right or wrong. But you won't do it so matter of fact and eloquent like I do. Be a little bit more ratchet. The vibration around this week as it continues forward every single day, they're going to get a little bit more ratchet. And the funny thing is, most of the transits this week are lunar. Most of them are actually lunar transits. We don't have big outer planet transits. So there's a transition of movement towards that goal, towards where the tunneling was. Making people aware of where we're making changes, feeling the vibration of where we need to make a change, where we need to be seen differently, how we need to be seen differently, and starting to talk about it, but not necessarily full on reacting quite yet. Some will, the human effect is some will. But astrologically speaking, next week is more intense than this week. Just putting that out there. All right. All right. Let's get into the charts. Let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday, March the 3rd. Our very first transit coming out the gate is going to be whenever Mercury goes into Aries. So I got Mercury right now at 12:30 a.m. He's at 29 degrees, 50 minutes. I'm going to bump this a few more hours to get it to 3:30. And now you'll see, boom, here is Mercury in Aries. Now, with Mercury going into Aries, I'm not hugely putting emphasis on this quite yet. I want the other transit to happen, and it's not going to happen until after the moon goes into Taurus. And what's going to be really clear for a lot of people is once the moon goes into Taurus, and this is going to go exact at 4:37 a.m. Central Standard Time. So those overnight hours of Sunday going into Monday, for a lot of people, they're going to be very restless. They're going to be very sleepless. Again, our minds are going to be running. And once the moon goes into Taurus, we got to look at the condition of Venus. Venus just turned in retrograde. She just turned around. But she's at that stewing, stirring point. And we're going to be looking at things around us over the course of the next 2.5 days while the moon is going through Taurus and going, I don't like this. I don't like this. This has been this way for a long time, but it's just not fitting with what we need right now. And we start looking at things that have been sitting for a while going, I don't need that. I don't want that. That's got to go. That's got to change. This needs an uplift. This needs something different. And we go through this vibration in our mind of seeing where we want long-term change. Where something that has been sitting in a way for so long, we're not willing to accept it in the same way. Once the moon goes into Taurus. Now, this does not have to be super intense for everybody. For some people, it will be. For other people, it's going to be epiphany energy over the next few days based off, again, how those lunar transits are going to commence. And that takes me into that first transit that I want to combine some things together. Okay. After the moon goes into Taurus, the moon is going to perfect into a square with Pluto. Now, this is the only main lunar transit to Monday. My only two transits for Monday is Mercury is now in Aries. And we got this Pluto square to the moon. Now, the Pluto, whenever we talk about him right now, he's in an area of the sky where he's never been before. So he's in new territory. So we got some new things that can come through. And Pluto's in the higher authority, pushing this square to the moon, pushing an agenda, pushing an idea, pushing some kind of frustration, But for a lot of people, whatever comes through on Monday is new. Now, whether that new is going to stick or not, that's a very different conversation. But the reason I'm saying it's new is because Mercury has just changed signs. For a lot of people, whenever we have two things change signs the way that they just have Mercury, a planet, going into Aries, and then the moon going into Taurus, we have the arrival of something or someone new that's coming through sometime on Monday. For most people, it's going to be more exact in the morning time. Some kind of frustration, maybe, some changes, some ideas, some topics. And it's like we get the new plan from the boss, what our new daily tasks are. And as soon as we see it, we got an issue with it, or we're feeling like we're getting forced to do something. We're getting forced to change something that's been away for a very long time. But our policy has always been like, we work 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. Yeah, well, moving forward, everybody's in the office. I know a lot of people are going through that with the Saturn and Pisces stuff, so I'm going to use that as an example. It's like getting that new requirement that you have to be at your desk, logged in by a certain time every single day, regardless of what you got going on in your life. And you're getting told something new, or it's now being impressed, and there's a struggle to it. There's a frustration to it. Pluto in this new higher authority in this new area of the sky, it's pushing new frustrations into people. And given now that the moon is in Venus aside and Venus is retrograde, we're more likely to feel something that we're not agreeable to, that we do not appreciate, that we do not take lightly. Are we immediately reacting? Not necessarily. A lot of the energy has got a stewing to it. Now, for some people, Pluto does not have to be negative. It is a very big Phoenix energy, and you've heard me talk about that before. For some people, be like, all of these changes have happened, and these changes have now led to this new policy change. It's led to another change. It's leading to us having to revamp, revise, and repurpose. And whatever we revamp to, whatever changes are about to come through, they're going to have a long-term effect. And it doesn't have to be heavy. For some people, it will be, but it doesn't have to be. But for a lot of us, whenever it comes to Monday, there's something or someone new coming through, some kind of new communication, some type of new documentation, something very, very new. And the reason I'm sticking with documentation and communication is because Mercury changed signs too. There's new words, there's a new decision, there's new rules, there's something new. But remember, Mercury is in shadow because he just went into shadow last week. So some of that new might not stick, but it ain't going to change anytime soon. So we still got to deal with it. All right, moving along. Like I said, these two transits are the only thing going on Monday. The moon's going to be in Taurus all day, so there can be some frustrations and anxiety in the energy because, again, Venus is stewing and spinning in the sky. But again, there's nothing real big going on directly whenever it comes to Monday. So now we're going to get into Tuesday, and there's a lot more lunar transits going on, just to be clear. So the first thing that's going to happen is going to happen between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 3:30. And this is where the sun, 14 degrees, 3 minutes right now in Pisces, is going to hit a sextile to the moon. Now, this is happening in the overnight hours. There's a couple things happening in the overnight hours. So just to be clear, if we're having some restless energy, having a hard time sleeping, like we're not getting into that deeper Zen energy, I can understand that because of the overnight vibration and the way that can kind of come through. Now, the sun being a reflection of ego, hitting a sextile to the moon, pushing something forward. For some people, there can be a late night energy to Monday. For other people, this is going to manifest early on Tuesday morning. But it's like pushing an idea, pushing some confidence. It doesn't have to be super heavy whenever it comes to sextiles. It can actually be a little bit more positive in the sense of like telling someone, oh, it's going to be okay. These changes aren't going to be the worst thing in the world. We just got to give it a chance. Okay, babe, we just got to give it a try. Just try it out for a few days. See how you feel. If it doesn't work, then we can talk, but just give it a shot. Like, this is gentle energy. Now, are we all getting gentle energy between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning? No. And that's why I said the human effect is for some people, it's going to happen late night on Monday. For other people, it's going to be more part of the earlier parts of Tuesday. The other thing that is going on right after the sun sextile to the moon is the actual Antiscia between Mars and Jupiter. Now, that is actually exact between 5:32 a.m. and 8:25 a.m. Central Standard Time. So there's a tension to Tuesday morning that cannot easily be explained. There is some kind of news, and given the fact that, again, the sun did hit a sextile to Jupiter, the sun hit a sextile to the moon, but from Jupiter's sign, there is some vibration of like support, but that doesn't mean that the support is being taken well, given the fact that we're going into an actual Antiscia, and it's the third and final one between Jupiter and Mars. So this is a layered energy. It's something that's very indirect. If I was to fold the chart here between Gemini and Cancer, Jupiter and Mars would be right on top of each other. They're getting the same amount of light. They're having a secret opposition. And again, all of the energy is going on between Pisces and Aries for the most part. So something going on in the system that's brewing is like there's an action being taken, but a lot of people are against it. A lot of people don't agree. There's a frustration brewing in the vibration. Now, for some people, we're looking at contention in a whole other way. It's like, I want to take this action, but I don't feel supported. I don't feel I have the money. I don't feel I have the plan. I don't feel like I have everything in order to take an action. And that can just be a part of that frustration kind of brewing in the morning. That can be more like that self-reflection of like, I have a lot of things to do, but I don't feel like I can do them. I feel like there's too much going on for me to get to my goal. And again, there can just be some stewing, brewing frustration that's coming through on Tuesday. But for the collective, this vibration is really setting the stage and setting some things in motion for how the entire month is going to go. And again, Jupiter is hosting right now the Sun, Saturn, North Node, and Neptune. Mars is hosting a retrograde Venus and a Mercury that is in shadow. So a lot of us were starting to see a reflection of change. And some people are going to be all for it. Some people are going to be very much against it. And it really comes down to whether we are dealing with cockiness, going what I was talking about in the intro. And that's why I read the book this time. I never read books in my intro, but I am this time. For some of us, are we dealing with cockiness or confidence? And there is a difference between the two. Confidence can rest on numbers. It is assured. Cockiness, it's ego that fills the room. Big head energy. We don't want big head energy right now. We want sure energy. And a lot of people, they don't realize that they're being cocky versus confidence. And if that's the case, cockiness is going to have some rude awakenings later on. Not immediately, but I'm warning of the later on. Okay. This is a vibration that is setting the stage for the entire month. Again, it's not a direct vibration. And that's why I put so much emphasis on it, because I can see that this pattern is bigger than what most people are thinking. And again, Jupiter and Mars, they're hosting the majority of the transits for the entire month. So there's going to be some frustrations and aggressions that start to build. Okay, moving along. Let's go back to some direct transits. Between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, so just going to bump this 2 hours, right after that Contra-ANTISCIA is done. I'm sorry, that Antiscia, it's an Antiscia, sorry. The moon in Venus' sign, in Taurus, is going to hit a sextile to that Mars. There will be some outside vibration regarding the actions, regarding the desire, regarding the confidence. And again, you can have these moments, given that the moon is in Venus, a sign of somebody saying, I know you want to take this action to make this change, but maybe we should try something else. Maybe we should think about it a little bit more. Maybe we should do something a little bit different. Don't just charge ahead. And some people are going to struggle with the idea. because again, we're trying to determine, are we dealing with cockiness or confidence? If you're dealing with cockiness, they're not going to be willing to hear you out. If you're dealing with confidence, they will be. But after this week, Mars is going to start moving again. So the whole idea is I want to find something to start shifting, to start transforming, to start moving with, whether other people like it or not. Okay. In the afternoon, between 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Saturn is going to go through a sextile to the moon. So we got Saturn, 21 degrees, 9 minutes. Here's the moon, 21 degrees, 5 minutes of Taurus. Saturn is the boss. It is the authority figure. It is the elder. It is who is responsible. It is delegation. Saturn is in the higher authority, giving words, giving information, giving an expression, giving some judgment. Whether it's a sextile or not, Saturn is still in a kind of a hot-headed energy, and he's in new vibration right now. So sometimes a little bit of even overconfidence in his vibration. But there's a direction here coming from the authority figure. So either you are giving someone direction, giving someone advice, giving someone judgment. You could be the Saturnian one, or you are the moon person getting the advice, getting the judgment, getting the call from the boss, from an authority figure, from your parents, from someone that is considered an elder within the family, this level of vibration. Okay. As we go into the evening time between 7 and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to put this to 8:30. The moon is going to hit a conjunction to Uranus. We're just past it right here. It was a little bit more exact around 8 p.m., but you guys know how I do this. Uranus's conjunction to the moon can be something out of the box. It can be something exciting. It can be something that's a little bit more fun. It doesn't have to be terrible. Now, sometimes you get a call from someone and you're hearing some exciting news. You're hearing something very, very unexpected. Considering, though, both of these planets right now are being hosted by Venus, the unexpected could be like, I quit my job today. What do you mean you quit your job? Very unexpected. Turn in the vibration, turn in the change. Yeah, they told me that if I can't work all week, just using that same example from what I used from Monday, if I can't continue to work in the office all week, that I might as well just turn in my notice. So I quit. That type of thing. There can be the unexpected news of a rapid recent turn, a recent change. For some people, it can be about appearance, the aesthetic. For some people, it can be about a food change. I'm going off some Venusian stuff right there. It's going to be a little different for everybody. But with that moon hitting the conjunction to Uranus in the evening time, for some people, this is going to be something very unexpected or something very, very excited coming through in the vibration. And usually it's us hearing about somebody else's stuff. Okay, moving along. We're going to get into the 5th. We're going to get into Wednesday. Now, the moon is still going to be in in Taurus for a while. It's going to go in Gemini in the overnight hours, but we have one more thing that's going to happen before that happens, and that's going to happen between 4 and 6 a.m. So I got this at 5:30, and what's going to go through is Neptune is hitting that sextile to the moon. Some of us are going to wake up on Wednesday morning a little foggy, a little clouded. We just had a weird dream. We had some weird things going on, a little confused, not necessarily hitting on all cylinders. We try to set our coffee cup down, it drops to the floor. We're trying to turn the egg, but we used a fork instead of a spatula, like little things like this. Like we're just a little off. Anytime that we've got these little vibrations around Neptune, our judgment can be clouded. It can take a little bit of time of not being clear, and there can be some major emphasis of confusion and frustration, but it's not because of Neptune on the frustration part. It's actually because of what's going on between Pluto and Mercury. And that is this building sextile between the two. So Pluto right now is at 3 degrees 0 minutes. Mercury is at 2 degrees 54 minutes. But over the next 2 hours, what's going to happen is the moon is going to go into Gemini. So I got this at 6:30 a.m. The moon is newly in Gemini. It actually went in right at 6:30. And between 7:07 and 7:25, so by 7:30, Pluto and Mercury will go through their exact sextile. There can be some tensions, there can be some frustrations, there can be some, again, some additional communication, news, something new coming through that can be frustrating, that can have a trigger vibration around it, can have a fear vibration around it, giving Pluto's vibration right here. And considering as the day continues, the Pluto will even make a trine to the moon, and Mercury will be making a sextile to this moon. So there's some new things coming through on Wednesday that can have tension, it can have frustration, it can be triggering, it can bring fear to the surface. And we've got new things that have just come through over the course of Monday and Tuesday based off of Mercury changing signs. But now, the moon is in Mercury's sign. So I want to focus a little bit now on just the idea of the moon in Gemini. Mercury is in that hot-headed vibration. Mercury is hosting this moon now. And over the course of the next 2.5 days of the moon being in Gemini, there's more likely going to be that pop-off vibration that I was talking about in the beginning. For some people, there's going to be like expressions of a plan, of something that we want to do, giving some direction, but it's not going to be easy and gentle direction. It's going to be a little poppy. It's going to be a little curt. More people are more likely to have their feelings hurt while the moon is going through Gemini. And that's not normal because Gemini is an air sign and it's a logical sign. Mercury rules the logical brain. But Mercury is being hosted by Mars in Cancer. So what I said in the beginning of the episode when I was talking about the idea that people are more likely to say things this week in response to how their feelings have been getting hurt for a while, it's because once the moon goes into Gemini, there's some things that need to be said. There's some things that a lot of people are going to get off of their chest. It's going to get real poppy, real snippy, real attitudes going on. And our response to the attitudes can get a little ratchet if you understand what I'm saying. It's going to get real interesting. And if you have an issue with certain people being aggressive or being so frustrating or saying things that are going to hurt your feelings, like they're super curt like that, you probably need to take a step back from people over the course of the next 2.5 days. Because if not, again, your feelings are going to get hurt. I need you to be prepared for that. Okay. Oh, the moon is now in Gemini. Now, again, Mercury is in that sextile to Pluto. As we continue into the morning, the moon's going to jump into that vibration. So I've got this now at the 12:30 area. Between 10:30 a.m. and 12:30, this is whenever the moon will go through its exact trine with Pluto. It will go through that sextile to Mercury. This is like somebody got some news in the morning time, and then another person got the rest of the news. They got the rest of the information. Pluto in the morning time, Pluto in that sextile to Mercury could be like telling a boss, you need to tell so-and-so moving forward, we're doing this. It's like delegating, like you need to go tell somebody else the bad news. And whenever the moon gets involved, it's like, well, where did this even come from? Oh, it came from the boss. It came from somebody higher. I am just the middleman. And there is a vibration of I'm the middleman in this situation, even if I agree with it or not. There's a lot going on. Now, for some people, the moon will be a complete third party and find out there's an issue going on between two people. One will be the Mercury person, one will be the Pluto person. And the moon person will most likely understand why someone feels the way that they do, why somebody is thinking the way that they are, because the moon is in Mercury's sign. Not necessarily going to agree with the Plutonian triggering, frustrating, traumatic individual, the person that is pushing the form of trauma, the abuse, the frustration, the power struggles. Okay. Excuse me. Moving this along. We're going to get into the evening time, and whatever we talk about next, for some people, this is going to be on the 5th. For other people, this is going to be more tied to Thursday. Why am I saying that? Between 11:30 p.m. on the 5th and 1:30 a.m. on the 6th, Venus is going to go through a sextile with the moon. But Venus is retrograde. Venus is not moving forward. She's going the other direction. So the concept right here feels like telling someone, I don't feel the same way anymore. I don't want to do the same things anymore. I want to change something. Now, this in the moment doesn't necessarily have to be heavy. It really doesn't. Sextiles are of the nature of Venus. They have a tendency to be understanding. But for some people, given that the moon is in Mercury's sign right now, the logic is I have somewhere to go. I have something that I need to work on, whether you have the ability to support me or not. And there will be some people that have certain conversations with people of just not seeing eye to eye. And again, for some people, that's going to be late on the 5th. For other people, that's going to be a part of Thursday. It's going to be a part of the 6th. So again, some of us are having very late night conversations on Wednesdays of like, moving forward, I'm going to go in this other direction. I need to focus in this other way. I've got this other plan going on. I can't keep doing what we've been doing in the past. And if you understand that vibration, it does not have to be heavy. Venus's retrograde is temporary. We can tell somebody temporarily, I can't help you. And for some people, you're going to be forced to say temporarily, I can't help you because you're going through something like, well, my hours have changed. I have to go work in a different location for a few months. Something's going on with my car. I'm not the one driving myself, so I can't drive you to work when I'm not even able to drive myself to work. So some people are going to be saying like, we have to do a different plan and go in 2 different directions temporarily. For other people, it's going to be a lot more intense. Some people are going to get their feelings hurt. Again, the longer the moon goes through Gemini, some of the things that are going to pop off are going to be real intense. Okay. Now, going further into these overnight hours on the 6th, we're going to get to the moon's conjunction to Jupiter. That is going to be felt the most exact between 3 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. So I got this at 4:30 right here. Here's Jupiter, 12 degrees, 44 minutes. Here's the moon, 12 degrees, 52 minutes. So we're just past the exact conjunction. Now, Jupiter is moving again, finally. We've got some things that are starting to come back up. Jupiter is in an area of the sky that it has been before, though. And one of the things I've said is some of us, what we're reacting to over the course of the month of March is stuff that's going to take us all the way back to last year. Some of it's going to go back to last summer, last spring. But a lot of what we're dealing with, we are reacting to the further advancement of something that has already been at play. And the moon's conjunction to Jupiter is talking to the doctor, the guru, the teacher. It's understanding a lesson. It's understanding a situation. It's taking things into account. It's asking for support, even if support is not an easy thing to gain. It's like we're asking for support. The knowledge, the lessons. We're asking for something. We're meeting about something. Now, again, are we all meeting and asking for stuff in the middle of the night? No. The human effect is we're likely to hear something, talk to someone, a doctor, the guru, the teacher, first thing in the morning. Hey, I had this really weird dream. Can I talk to you about it? What does it mean whenever crows are in your dream? What does it mean whenever the windows blow out of your house in a dream? What does it mean whenever everybody's upside down in a dream? Like, you can imagine the messages I get, right? About dreams. This type of thing. Because of that overnight hours. Talking to the doctor, the guru, the teacher, having a desire to hear something else from the doctor. It can be real profound stuff. It can be super simple stuff like, hey, what's the best way to get rid of the cold? Just to be clear, the moon's conjunction to Jupiter is that type of vibration. Sometimes you're the Jupiter person giving the knowledge, giving the education. Sometimes you're the moon person. You're the one getting the information. You're the one going to see the doctor. You're the one going to that place, but not necessarily all at 4:30 in the morning. Let's be clear. Okay. Now, after the moon's conjunction to Jupiter, we're going to keep this going between 9:30 and 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to go into our first quarter moon. And this is where the sun in Pisces, 16 degrees, 21 minutes, is going to square the moon. So we're at 16 degrees, 20 minutes in Gemini. It's almost exact. We're like a minute off. You can see that. And this is where we start to feel the building pressure change in the lunations, because from here forward, we're building to a full moon. Not only that, we're building to the first eclipse that's going to be in the other mercurial sign. So some of the news and the information and stuff that are going to come through is going to lead to a triggered turnaround next week. And you should very much be prepared for some of the news that starts to come through after this square, after the first quarter moon. Remember, Mercury is in shadow. By the time we get to next week, the end of next week, Mercury will go retrograde. So there is a push that starts to come through, a push of information, a push of emotional conversations, a push of certain things that are starting to come through. Sometimes you're the sun person pushing someone to see something, pushing some kind of knowledge. Sometimes you're the moon person taking some kind of knowledge. How you receive that is going to be different for everyone. I'm not talking about the reception. I'm just saying, like, the vibration starts to speak to a push that follows. Okay. Oh, as we go through the day, though, the moon's going to be in Gemini all day. Keep doing its thing. We're going to get into the evening time between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. So I got this now at 7:30. Saturn is going to square the moon. So you can see Saturn 26 minutes in Pisces, hitting the square to the moon at 21 degrees, 29 minutes. We're just past the exact right here, but not really. Like it's pretty tight. Saturn, again, it is the authority figure. It is the rules. It is the laws. It is the boundary. It is the elders. It is about responsibilities, pushing an agenda, pushing certain news, pushing new things forward, giving certain direction, giving certain judgments. But what I think is really interesting is right as the moon goes through its square from Saturn, simultaneously, it is also going through a sextile from Chiron. That's actually happening at the same time. So part of the push is like a push to fix something, a push to overcome something. Some people will feel the push, but they'll also feel like the reopening of an old wound because they've been pushed. And there can be things tied to wounds that start to come through. Inner child wounds, deep-seated wounds, the stuff that's back in our memories. There's certain things that start to get pushed to the surface, pushed to come through. And there can be frustrations and tension when we go through that square from Saturn. And considering a big portion of the vibration while the moon has been in Gemini, we had that Pluto sextile to Mercury, Pluto being in Saturn's sign. This can, again, have layers to tension to some of the things that have already occurred throughout the week based off of the knowledge, the information, and the judgments that have come through whenever it comes to Saturn. Now, this kind of takes the cake. It's the last transit of the day. Some people are going to be a little flustered throughout the rest of the evening. Some people are not necessarily going to want to talk. Some people are just going to be wanting to talk about, like, our grandparents talking about the past, and it's not going to be flustering at all. It's going to be like, do you remember that time grandma tried to catch the kitchen on fire? I remember that time. I remember how it happened. Anyways, moving along. We're going to get into the 7th. We're getting into Friday. The moon is going to be in Gemini all night. The main thing that we're going to have in the overnight hours is going to actually happen real early in the morning. And that is going to be when Neptune goes through its square to the moon. Oh, confusion, frustration, distracted energy. Don't really like this energy for people driving. Feels like this can be like a really harsh car wreck type energy. I want to be clear about that. There can be things that get said that trigger some emotions, given the way that the rest of the day is going to go. There can be things that come through that get said that are just mind-boggling. Somebody says something so harsh and so hurtful that you're like, I don't even know where that came from. And again, as the weekend, we go into the weekend, there can be some things that bring up some emotions. There can be some very triggering things whenever Neptune hits that square to the moon. Confusion, frustration. Some people it will be inspiration of things we needed to take care of. Not everything with Neptune has to be bad. But I'm like, if it's inspiration, I'm like 30%. If there's confusion, frustration, things not being clear, things being spoken in a way that don't make sense, if we're having distracted energy, that is the 70%. And again, no distracted driving Friday morning. That was like a very clear thing that came in my meditation on this transit. No distracted driving Friday morning. We will have regrets. Okay. Now, at 10:29 a.m. Central Standard Time, The moon is going to go into Cancer. So you can see it right here, 0 degrees, 0 minutes. After the moon goes into Cancer, the moon is in its home sign. And again, whatever happened in the morning through the square, whatever happened over the last few days, through all of those squares from Pisces going over to Gemini, certain things got said. And some of the things that got said brought up some feelings. And there's going to be some things we need to process once the moon goes into Cancer, emotional processing. Now, some of what got said throughout the week, we don't know where that came from. We didn't realize somebody was so upset. Somebody was so frustrated. We didn't know what we didn't know. But all of a sudden, the moon goes into Cancer, and either we have some emotional processing to do based off of what some of the things that have been said over the week, or we need to start taking care of certain things going on around us, get some things ready around the house. We had to take care, take an initiative to get something prepared. And that's the level of care that I'm meaning. But there can still be some emotional responses in this vibration. Just consider that we're building up to the eclipse. Now, the eclipse is not this week. We're not in it yet. But so much of the vibration is building up to an eclipse that constitutes changes and shifts and adapting. There's going to be some emotional things that are going to come to the surface that we either feel like the only way we can feel okay is to make the change. So we got some prep kind of stuff to do. Other people, they're going to be trying to emotionally process some of the news, some of the communication, some of the things that have been said over the course of the week as we go through Friday. So let's continue. The moon is now in Cancer. All right. Now, as the day progresses, the moon's not going to be really aspecting anything until we get into the evening time. And this is going to be between 8 and 10 p.m. So I got this at 9:30. And what's going to happen is Mercury, 5 degrees, 57 minutes, goes through a square to the moon. Mercury again is in shadow. The moon just spent the last few days in Mercury's sign. Mercury is in pop-off season. He is in Aries. He's going to say some things that, again, can hurt some feelings. So for some people, this can be that super confident, yeah, let's go do something. I'm going to get you out of your funk. Get your ass in the car. We're going to go shoot some pool. We're going to go sing some karaoke. We're going to go do something. You don't need to be in a funk. Let's go. And that can be fun. For other people, I said what I said, and I don't care if it hurts your feelings. Mercury in Aries, saying whatever he has to say, bursting out with whatever he needs to say, that pushes emotional triggers, that pushes some emotional responses. Whenever it comes to the moon in Cancer, there's some emotions that are going to come up. And Mercury can be pushing some kind of communication, some type of idea, some type of information that starts to instigate change. Now, the other thing that will start to happen over the weekend is Venus is going to get off her 10-degree mark where she's been for just short of 2 weeks. And Mars is going to get off the 17-degree mark. Some of the things that get said pushes us into motion again. And this can be one of those moments where somebody pushes. Now, again, it can be a push of you're going to get out of your funk, get in the car, we're going to go karaoke, and we're going to sing to our heart's content, completely offbeat, and I don't care. Because the idea is to make you feel better. And that push can help rebuild your confidence. But for other people, Mercury in this hot-headed vibration is going to say some things, and it's going to be like, you know what? You just said the thing that crosses the boundary, and I don't care anymore. I won't sit still. I'll spend part of the weekend starting to move. Okay. Now, the other thing that's going on Friday, which also speaks to this whole vibration of starting to move, is this is whenever the sun hits its exact sextile to Mars. Now, this is going to be felt between 10:52 p.m. and 11:39 p.m. Central Standard Time. So here's the sun, 17 degrees, 53 minutes. Here is Mars, 17 degrees, 53 minutes. There is a push emotional pushes to go in a direction, to overcome objection, to move towards a new desire, to go in a different direction, to do something different. Given the fact that Mercury is in the square to the moon while the sun is going through the sextile to Mars, there can be some very hot-headed energy to Friday, emotional responses to Friday, things, people getting things off of their chests, and the things that come out are going to be aggressive. For some people, it's going to be that cockiness. I'll say whatever I want, and I don't care if it hurts your feelings or how it hurts your feelings, because this is how I feel. For other people, it's going to be that boost of like, nope, we're not doing this. You're coming with me. And whatever we do tonight is to get over the funk so you can start moving again. Where you land is going to be very different for everyone. But there is tension, frustration, aggression, boosts of confidence, big boom vibrations whenever it comes to the 7th. Okay, moving along. Moving along. After the exact trine between the sun and Mars, there's nothing else going on. Of course, we're getting into the 8th. Now, we're going to still be in the sun-Mars trine vibration as we go through the day on Saturday. In the overnight hours, our first transit is going to happen between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And this is when Venus goes through that square with the moon. Let's go with the idea that something nice happened on Friday and not something aggressive. I just want something nice. You go out with your girlfriends, you go to the karaoke, you sing your hearts out. Everything was off key. You don't care. You wore a silly hat, a silly outfit. You had a blast. And you start talking to your friend afterwards. And you know how sometimes you're hanging out on your friend's back patio after hours, drinking wine, still vibing and just going, you know what? You're right. I absolutely needed that to move, to change. And I want to go in a different direction. The moon is in its own home sign. Venus is retrograde and moving off of the 10-degree mark. And this is why I want to use this more in a positive light than a negative one. There can be the negative, but for this example, I want to use a positive one. We got enough things that speak to aggression. It's like going out with your girlfriend and in those overnight hours, feeling so much relief because you did something different. And that relief goes, okay, you're right. I can move. I do still have the ability to change. I do still have the ability to fight back. I do still have the ability to do something different. I'm going to do this something different. And Venus is square to the moon while being retrograde feels like I'm going to do the different. I got you, girl. I understand. It's moon in Cancer, moon in its own sign. So there's understanding here. I don't feel like this, even though directionally, like the split, it's more along the lines of you understand why the split is necessary. You understand why that change is necessary. You understand why somebody is willing to walk out the door on their husband. You understand this is necessary. And I got you. I understand. I got your back. I support this. Now, this is the only transit to the overnight hours and to the majority of the day. Everything else is going to be in the evening time. So we're going to keep this going. We're going to get this to about 7:30 because that's going to kind of encompass both. Okay. We got a couple things going on right here. Between 6 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Mars right as Mars gets off the 17-degree mark. We're willing to move. We're willing to take steps. We're willing to go in another direction. Remember what I said. Remember, Mars is hosting that Venus. Now, for some people, you're going to make an immediate move. You're going to tell someone that same day, I'm moving in with my girlfriend. I'm moving in with my mom. I'm moving in with someone else. I'm making this change. I am addressing a disruption because it's Mars. Simultaneously, though, the sun is also going to go through a trine with the moon. Considering we just had a sun-Mars trine, this feels like the next round, the next layer to whatever has been going on and building up throughout the week. And now we're willing to make a change. Now we're willing to make an adjustment. Now we're willing to see something differently. Now we're willing to move. The moon's conjunction to Mars while the sun is in the trine to the moon. So this is very simultaneous energy, and it's going to be felt the most exact between basically 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. for Mars, 7 and 9 p.m. for the sun. So just round it out, 6 to 9 p.m. There is understanding, there is movement, there is frustrations. Yes, because it's Mars and it's the god of war, and he's hosting a very angry Venus. He's hosting Mercury in shadow. So we've got some things going on. We desire to take an action. That action was going to require levels and layers to change. We understand one layer by the end of this first week of March, but we're not understanding all the layers. There is an adaptation. There is a change. Can there be tensions here? Can there be fighting here? Absolutely. If you tell someone you want to move out, do you think that they take it lightly? No, most people are going to be like, what do you mean? You're not leaving nowhere. They want to slam doors in your face. They want to do certain things. Be aware of that. And my biggest advice whenever you go through energy like that is be aware and be strategic. You don't have to approach aggression head on. Some of you are not going to necessarily be head on with people. Like it's all going to be over the phone. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is put your phone on do not disturb and or block. Huge fan of the block button, babies. Use the block button. Some of us are going to be the support to other people going block, going, yeah, here's another glass of wine. Block them again. Give me their info so I can block them too. Tell the astrologer so I can delete their chart. Okay, no. Anyways, moving along. There's a lot of energy here. For a lot of people, it's going to be very intense. For other people, it's going to be very celebratory. For other people, it's going to be very frustrating. There is a lot of energy here between Friday and Saturday. And for some people, Saturday is going to be like a peak point based off of that. And I want people to be aware of that. Okay. Oh, the next thing that's going to happen is going to be another one of those trances that takes us from one day to the next. So this starts between 11:30 p.m. on the 8th, on Saturday, but it continues to 1:30 a.m. on the 9th. And that is Chiron going through its square to the moon. How do you feel? Do you feel better after leaving? Do you feel better after this conversation? Do you feel better after blocking him? Do you feel better after a few drinks? How are you feeling? Chiron square the moon. For other people, where did this hurt? How did this hurt you? Chiron square the moon. For other people, this is how we fix it. This is how we heal it. Chiron square to the moon. There is something about the wound. For a lot of people, this can be new wounds. The thing about Chiron is he's kind of in a different area of the sky right now. New wounds, new frustrations. For other people, it is how we heal the old wound finally. And the idea of finally healing something is going to be very, very big. Not willing to accept certain things. And again, Chiron square to the moon. For some people, it will manifest for you Saturday night. Again, it starts around this 11:30 p.m. For a lot of other people, it's part of the next day. It is a part of Sunday. Chiron square to the moon. What hurt you? How do we fix it? How do we heal it? What do we do next? Questioning, are you okay? And considering as we go into Sunday, while we're wrapping up the square between Chiron and the moon, we also get into Saturn's trine with the moon. For some people, the wound is going to require an authority figure. For some people, it's going to be having a hard conversation the next morning with the kids. For other people, it's going to be having the hard conversation with your mom. It's like, well, you showed up in the middle of the night. You want to talk about it now? For some people, the talking about it is going to be in the middle of the night. For other people, it's going to be, can we get some rest? I'll talk to you about it in the morning. There's a lot of frustration and energy too next weekend. Sometimes that Saturnian person needs to be the elder. It needs to be an authority figure. It needs to be somebody that shows us emotional support. And considering we are now talking about a trine from Saturn, sometimes you need that higher level of support that is spiritual. Sometimes it's our family. Sometimes it just has to do with letting someone know that I'll take care of it. I will be responsible. If they show up at the door, you don't have to answer the door. I will take care of it. Just go rest. That type of thing. Chiron in the square can have a bit of a questioning, but Saturn in the trine has more understanding. And this again is like kicking somebody out of your apartment or going to your parents' house, knowing that you got someone else at the house to open the door to deal with whoever starts showing up. There's that level of frustration. There's that level of emotional understanding. Now, again, we're not all in the crazy breakup situations. I know that. And how this manifests for you in other ways can have to do with the fact that, little Timmy got hurt. And now we got to go talk to, the friend's parents about who's going to take care of the hospital bills. It can be things like this. We have still things tied to wounds. And who's the responsible party? Who's going to take care? Who's going to put some judgment to this? Who's going to do what? Are we all doing that at 1:30 in the morning? No. The human effect is, for some people, this is late on Saturday. For other people, it is late, or it is early on Sunday. So we're going to move along. Speaking of early on Sunday, between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, Uranus is going to go through a sextile to the moon. Early morning unexpected phone call, early morning unexpected invitation. Hey, you want to go to brunch? Hey, we're going to go do this. Hey, you want some coffee? Something a little unexpected. Sometimes you wake up the next morning and you take a look at your social media and you see like something crazy did happen the night before because you're seeing it on your feed. You're like, what's that? Sometimes you had nothing to do with the vibration the night before. You just heard the crazy outside and you waited to see how it ended up in your news feed. That's me. This is how it ends up in my news feed. This is how it ends up in my DMs. Uranus is sextile to Venus, or to the moon right here. 5:30 to 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Just again, some parts of the morning on Sunday, you can get some unexpected news, unexpected plans, something a little bit exciting. It kind of depends on how the day is going to go. We're going to keep this going into the afternoon. In between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m., so I got this at 4:30, Neptune is going to hit a trine to the moon. Now, when it comes to Neptune's vibration, it's going to be a little interesting. Neptune's trine to the moon can be inspiring for some. It can be confusing for others. It can be getting told lies, emotional lies all of a sudden. Now, here's the deal. Whenever it comes to Venus and her vibration and the fact that a lot of people, especially people that are being activated by Venus, are going to turn in other directions and they're going to want to make a change. For some people, it will not be the aesthetic change, and it really won't. It will be physical, reactive changes of taking an action to go in another direction. But if you have ever broken up with a narcissist, there's always two sides of the story. And some people will get told one side, and they're going to be so dumbfounded. Like, I thought you guys were happy. What do you mean she left you? And there's going to be some tall tale that can come out. For other people, it is not going to be the tall tale. It is going to be talking about the things that other people did not know. And they will again be dumbfounded. There will still be confusion. There will still be this vibration of like, I had no idea you felt this way. I had no idea that you weren't happy. I had no idea that it had gotten this bad. I had no idea. And there can be this lasting vibration of confusion whenever it comes to Neptune's trine to the moon. Now that's going off of the continuous effect that something has gone on throughout this weekend and there's been a reactiveness. But not everybody's going through that level of reactiveness. And Neptune's trine right here can be like, I know there's crap going on in the world and I don't want to be connected to any of it. I want to binge a show that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm going to sit here and watch all of my favorite Marvel movies all of a sudden. I'm going to go watch something that has this flare of nostalgia, of a distraction from the rest of the energy, because I don't want to be connected to it. We look for something that clouds our senses, that keeps us away from all the frustration. Now, for some people, that is going to have hints of medicines and other things that can cloud our senses. Sometimes we want to drink something or we want to smoke a little something. Other people are going to want to binge their favorite shows. They're going to look for something that is distraction. That is if you are not dealing with the confusion and the frustration and that level of temperamental issue in that vibration because of the Venus retrograde. And we're all going to be in different places. Now, after the moon's trine with Neptune, it's going to go void for just about 20-30 minutes. And then at 5:59 p.m., the moon is going to go into Leo. And as soon as the moon goes into Leo, it starts to build an opposition to Pluto that actually goes exact between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on March 10th, the following Monday. So there is a peak of frustration, of aggression, of things that are going to come through. And what's interesting is now the moon is in Leo. The moon is in the sun's sign. And as we go into next week, building into that eclipse, we are also building in to the Sun-Saturn conjunction. And as we go to the end of next weekend, specifically the 9th, for some people, it's going to be the Friday, Saturday. There's going to be something that speaks to, I got shit to do. I got stuff to do. Anytime the sun comes into a conjunction to Saturn, we don't sit still well. We feel very much tied that it's time to do something. It's time to get recognized. It's time to take an action. It's time to take responsibility. It's time to hold someone accountable. It's time to do something. By the time we get to the end of next weekend, there will be a vibration that speaks to, it's time to do something. And the way that starts is in that late part of Sunday, when the moon is in Leo, the sun sign, hitting an opposition to Pluto in Saturn sign. Yes, it's Uranus' sign too, but for this part of the conversation, we're talking about Saturn. Because over the next few days, once the moon goes into Leo, the sun will be hitting a conjunction to Saturn. So there's something that can be triggered over the weekend. And once we come to the awareness, once something comes to light, late on Sunday for many people, the human effect can be, if this has to do with work or something like that, it might be on Monday morning, the next week, going into the 10th. So part of what I say right here will also connect us to next week, the next week, March 10th and so on, March 10th through 16th. It can set a vibration into motion. By the end of next week, we're going to be getting set into a vibration of filing something, changing the verbiage, putting out our application, holding someone accountable, recognizing someone for the responsibilities they've taken. For some people, it will be positive. For some, not all. There will be news that comes through. And for some people, whatever the news is going to flip another switch. But we have no idea what that news is until we deal with the human effect of this week and next week. So much of these 2 weeks correspond to one another. And whenever we get to the end of next week, there's a whole other response coming through, because that is going to be eclipse season, and it's going to be the start of the Mercury retrograde right after an eclipse in Mercury's sign. But we spend part of this week with the moon in Mercury's sign. We spend all of this week with Mercury in its fun pop-off placement in Aries. Things are going to pop off this week. People are going to pop off this week. Even you get some people that they're good at like keeping it in and holding it together and just letting other people act stupid. Some of them are going to be more likely to pop off this week. And the ones that usually hold it together, they're not just going to pop off at anybody. They're going to make it count. And they're going to say something to someone that is needed to hear things for a very long time. That level of accountability will not always be taken well. That doesn't mean that that energy was wrong. And that's a special message to parents. I want to be clear about that part. If you got the cool-headed kid over these next 2 weeks that all of a sudden says something to the other kid that's been picking on him for months, another kid who's been picking on their best friend for months, or a teacher or an authority figure, this week or next week, for the first time, that was a long time coming. And listen to your kids. Listen to what they have to say. The reason I put a focus on kids whenever I want to talk about this in the exit part is Aries is the sign of the child. So there can be things that go on that happen to impact kids this week. As much as there can be, I want to charge headfirst into things and I want to overcome and I want to finally get things moving again. We can deal with these levels of aggression. There can also be things that either impact women, because Venus is now retrograde in Aries, and there's more likely to be violence against women whenever Venus is retrograde in Aries. But once Mercury goes into Aries too, there can be stuff about children. For some people, there can be things about women and children. And there can be aggression too this week. Some people pushing their thoughts, their attitude, their ratchet behavior. For others, it will be fighting back, moving backwards, moving in a different direction, making a change. For some people, we come to terms with a change this week, but we might not make the additional move until the weekend or next week. There's a reactiveness to the energy. Now, I will do a meditative rant video this week, and I'm going to talk about Venus retrograde, and I'm going to talk about different themes that I'm seeing around her. And I know a lot of people are like, but Dusty, Venus is already retrograde. Why didn't you do it beforehand? Because I got sick. I had the flu. I'm a little delayed. And with this episode, you guys are getting like 4 in like a week's time. So we can push Venus's vibration to next week, and I'll talk about her themes. And the thing is, this retrograde for her is going to be in 2 parts. The Aries part and the Pisces part. One part she's having to fight for everything, but when Venus goes into Pisces, it's not going to feel like fighting for everything. It's going to feel like it's supported. There's going to be a change in that vibration. But we're not going to see that change for a while. And some of the tensions and some of the things that what we desire to change in this Venus retrograde, for some people, it is the work. We have the work to do. I'll use the most mundane example possible. Friday afternoon, I went outside and my physical work was I started pulling every freaking weed out of my garden. I got some things I want to do to my actual garden beds before I actually like plant anything this season. So the work for me was kind of physical at that moment. That's a mundane example. A physical change, taking out all the weeds so they don't take over the entire bed and make it impossible for everything else to grow. We have to make a change. We adapt. We overcome. A lot of Venus's change can be aesthetic changes. For an action to be able to proceed and be successful later, I have to make all of these changes. I got to get this space ready. I got to do all this work over here so it leads to something better later. Got hoops to jump through. And some of this week will be nothing but hoops. But for some of you, there's going to be a fight. People are going to say something and push some buttons. For some of you, it will be a mix of both. I got all this stuff to do, but it's like somebody walks in the door like, well, I used to have a dinner table in here, but it's covered in stuff now. Yeah, it is. Because I'm expanding my business. I needed to put stuff here temporarily because I'm moving stuff around in the garage. Or I'm building a she shed, or I'm doing something different. And the temporary change is necessary, but the temporary change brings tempers. It's going to happen. Some people don't like change. The problem is all of this vibration throughout the entire month of March and April, it's about change. And I have said that before. It is about change. But for a lot of people, the change is a reactive change. We've already been shown the things that we don't desire anymore. We've already been shown all the things that are just taking us to that darker, deeper point. We don't want that anymore. So we have to take on something else that helps rebuild our confidence. But that means taking certain actions to do something to rebuild it. However, not everybody is confident. Some people are being really cocky and they're going to do things to hurt certain people because they think they're right. Please know the difference. Somebody's doing something to be hurtful to others. That's not necessarily good. And there can be repercussions to that because of the vibration that we're in. Some people are overfilled with a cockiness. Other people are trying to do everything possible to refill their confidence, to feel like a person again, to feel solid again, to not feel so emotionally drained anymore. And whatever it takes to finally recover from all the damage that Mars's retrograde in Cancer did. For a lot of you, it did damage. For some of us, it just taught us lessons. I know. It's still the steps that we take to recover, to move forward, to do something different. Recovery will be necessary. It is necessary. And for a lot of us, the changes of the Venus retrograde, that response, that reaction, that result, that consequence is everything we need to rebuild our confidence to go into the new, because so many of us are moving into something new going into the later parts of this year. But for us to get into the new, we got to do the work. Let's do the work. For others, that work is about getting out of the things that emotionally drain you. It's about getting away from those situations that emotionally drain you. You know where you are in those situations, and you know what decisions you have to make. And Venus, willing to fight to be seen differently, will definitely empower many people to get out of those things that have been so emotionally draining. This is the first week. She's going to be retrograde until April. You know where you are. You've got some ideas. Some of you are going to go through this week and you're going to be dumbfounded by the actions and reactions of other people. Others, as soon as you see it, you're going to be like, oh, there's that energy grab she was talking about. Now I get it. Okay. For some of you, you're still going to be clueless until it gets pointed out to you. And that's okay too. All right. Oh, I hope it is an incredible week. I hope a lot of you get a lot of work done. I hope a lot of you get the chance to make whatever decision you need to do to heal. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.